Welcome to Fuller Speed Ahead. I'm Craig Fuller here with the Steve Martin of Fuller Speed Ahead, Jordon Graft. Jordon, how are you today?
I'm good. It's just such an honor to be called Steve Martin. Thank you. I guess that's because of my numerous appearances. So I love Steve Martin.
You are our most frequent guest on Fuller Speed Ahead. It's awesome. I love reporting the news that you guys are involved in. You're doing exciting things. You've bootstrapped this payment network as part of this very large factoring bank. So you have the benefit of having the financial infrastructure for the bank standpoint, but also the ability to incubate and be an entrepreneur and a founder inside of this enterprise. Tell us a little bit about what the news is today.
Yeah, so we've announced that we've reached an agreement to acquire Hubtran, and as a part of that agreement and part of that acquisition, we are creating the first transportation payments network, and that looks very different than what TriumphPay is today. And it's an exciting opportunity for us to bring something to the industry that hasn't been there before and creates a lot of value for all the participants in the industry.
Now you say this is different than what you do today. I thought you guys were a payment network.
Yeah, principal. TriumphPay when it started was really more a reverse factoring product. And when Steve Hausman came up with the idea, it was starting with an approved invoice and offering quick pay to carriers. As we kind of gotten farther and deeper into this, we saw a greater opportunity to create connectivity between the constituents in the market. We looked at, hey, we could use this TriumphPay platform to go sell as much factoring and quick pay and all these things that we could do through the bank, or we could use it to open it up to create integration for all the participants in the industry and invite brokers and factors in into the network.
So really, when you think about where it's evolving to, what was the impetus behind acquiring Hubtran in terms of how does that impact your business?
Yeah, so to be a payments network, there's really three components that we need to do that in transportation. That's presentment, settlement, and payment. And TriumphPay, prior to acquiring Hubtran, did not have settlement. That's the functionality for a broker finalizing the amount to pay on an invoice and handling accessorials and all the changes that come on an invoice between the rate confirmation and the invoice. So acquiring Hubtran allows us to inject that settlement functionality into TriumphPay, and that's what allows us to turn TriumphPay into a payments network with an end-to-end structured and integrated transaction from when the carrier or the factor generates the invoice all the way through the broker approving it to payment and the actual remittance that goes along with that payment.
Now you said you didn't have settlement. I'm not sure exactly when you say you didn't have settlement. You guys did provide funds into the payment network. So explain a little bit more about what the settlement mechanism is.
Yeah, and so your background in the card network, that's the term they use for the actual movement of funds. We use it more in the terms of when the payer is finalizing the amount to pay on an invoice. That's when they're handling any of those, where they're checking the bill of lading for damages and a signature, when they're looking for lumper fees and detention charges and handling those elements. We call that settlement. It doesn't map perfectly to a card network terminology, but yes, we did do what we call payment, the movement of funds from the payer to the payee prior to this acquisition.
You guys are owned by a bank, which enables you to build this entire payment infrastructure. It's interesting because there's been this evolution of these non-bank entities around transportation, but having the bank license creates a lot of compliance and security for your products that are much more so than if you were not a bank entity.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the bank charter allows us to have the pre-exemption for money transmission in the U.S., and so we don't have to get state licenses to do that. The one thing I think that is changing as a part of this model, going to become more of a payments network, is being less reliant upon our balance sheet and more being less about our balance sheet and using that to create value for people, and more about using the integrations that we've built between Hubtran and what Hubtran's built, what we've acquiring and integrating into the integration that TriumphPay's built. So it's a little bit of a shift in focus in how we're going to try and go to market with folks, and that's good for brokers. It's good for and in this model, it's good for factors too. And so that's what's the biggest change as a part of this, is we're inviting factors into this network to help them create efficiencies in their business. And for brokers, we're going to be bringing them more structured data, provide them more opportunities for rebate in other ways, and also allowing brokers, if they're interested, to fund their own quick pays. We're still going to use our balance sheet to fund quick pays for brokers that would like that, but we're going to be more open and allowing for payers, if they want to use their balance sheet to fund their quick pays and keep more of the revenue share. We're going to be opening that up to them.
So Jordan, you guys have acquired Hubtran. This is a pivot of sorts, or at least an expansion of your core business from being a product that was incubated inside of a single factoring entity. You've discussed the idea that this platform could go broader to other factors they could take advantage. Talk a little bit about how the Hubtran acquisition fits into that strategy.
Yeah, and I'll just hang out here for a second, right? This was a hard decision for us, right? When we looked at first acquiring Hubtran, we saw it could create this payments network, this end-to-end integration and structured data. And our first approach was, hey, let's leverage this for our own, for the benefit just of Triumph, right? A closed loop network, like an Amex approach. Let's just use this for our own internal benefits. But we realized if we did that we would be cutting out an entire industry, basically. We're cutting out the entire factoring industry from being able to participate in this efficiency, and that's not healthy for the industry. And so what we decided was this pivot to this open loop. And so that's going to create this separation from the bank and the factoring business, which go hand in glove, how the bank deposits fund the factoring business, to this now payments network, which is going to be an open loop approach. And the factors that choose to join this network will have the same benefits that TBC, to be on an equal playing field with TBC. And that was hard for us to internally take on and make that decision. And there was a lot of debate about that. So I just make that really clear that we are serving all factors equally, even our sister company TBC, and we're starting to create that separation today. And we're ensuring data privacy. We're not going to be using any of the data of the payments network to benefit TBC. We haven't to date, and we aren't going to. And so that's I think important for people to hear as we start to roll out this neutral payments network.
Yeah, I mean, being owned by a bank, having sold into banking, my previous career, you're very regulated. There's a lot of compliance around it. It's different than, say, a business that has a private business but isn't audited. It's that level of security goes to a degree that's much deeper in terms of data privacy, data security, and such. Jordon, I have to ask, why Hubtran specifically? What was really the impetus for this particular transaction?
Because Matt Bernstein is awesome, and he's built an awesome company and has a great team. That's why. Now,
well, we have Matt here. Let's hear it from Matt. So, Matt, how did this transaction come about for you? What was it? What really drove the decision to do this particular transaction? Love to hear sort of what was the. Tell us a little bit about the experience of actually going through the process.
Yeah, sure. So it's kind of funny. I mean, we've just been laser focused on building out our technology for brokers and factors for the past 5-6 years. And from time to time, folks would come to me and say, "Hey, why don't we combine, tie up, etc." And my answer always was, "Well, it's really not the right time for us because we just saw a ton of headroom and a lot of potential for this technology, and we're just getting better and better at it." But I've known Jordon and I've known the folks at TriumphPay for a while. Our companies actually teamed up and integrated Hubtran and TriumphPay to create a better experience for our brokers, customers, and carriers. And so we've gotten to know each other over time. And I think we really share a common vision, which is all about kind of creating this place where all these industry participants can enjoy just instantaneous and effortless kind of payment. You provide the service, you get paid, and it just works. And I think that they also have built a great product, and the products together are going to fit really well to create tremendous value for our customers. That's always kind of what we think about first. They really view kind of factors as playing a critical role in the industry, as do we. So I think this is a great win for the Hubtran team. It's going to really do terrific things in the marketplace in terms of building value for our customers. So the deal made sense.
Now, Matt, did you guys run a process, or was this more of an intimate partnership with Triumph?
We did not run a process. It just getting to know kind of the Triumph team and knowing that they not only kind of share that vision, but they get stuff done, and that our teams work together really compatibly. I mean, that's what makes a difference, right? It's not about, can you go through a process and kind of get, absolute top dollar. It's figuring out, how do you make sure this is something that's got legs, that's really, where you get that proverbial 1+1 = 3 outcome.
Now, Matt, you're the founder of the company. What does this mean for you? Like, what's next for you?
Well, I've never been so good at retirement, I don't think. So, I'm going to continue to serve in an advisory role to TriumphPay Hubtran, whatever Jordon decides to call it, and so provide whatever kind of advice and services I can there. And then we've been very focused for the past 5-6 years on North American over-the-road freight. I think there's a lot of opportunity in global freight, so I'm going to be taking a look at the freight forwarding market. But that's a different conversation for a different day. Today's all about TriumphPay and Hubtran.
Now, Matt, are you hinting at your next move as sort of after you do this transaction, it's integrated into the TriumphPay ecosystem? Is this something that you're hinting at, that maybe we'll see you in logistics, but more broadly than domestic?
Well, I guess I'll just say stay tuned. I'm kind of a restless person, so I'm looking forward to continuing to be involved in transportation.
I love it. It's funny, as a founder, I always wonder, and I had institutional money. Matt, I don't know if you guys had taken institutional money, but as a founder, when you take institutional money, there is a finite lifespan for that. So I've been wondering what that day will be like for me. I'm wondering I've talked to a lot of founders that have gone through this process. In many ways, it's bittersweet. It's exciting because you're able to take the business and find a new home for it. But what is this experience? What is this emotion like for you as you realize that you're taking this business and essentially passing the torch of what you built on to Jordon and his team?
Well, it is, anytime you invest almost everything you have into building something, it is a little bittersweet. And regardless of the dollars, I wouldn't have sold Hubtran to a company in leadership that I didn't think was able to get it to the next level and do a better job than I could. So, TriumphPay is going to bring more investment. The product they've built, the relationships that they've built in the industry, but more important, I mean, they've just got a great team, and I'm delighted to kind of pass the baton to Jordon, because I think he's really gonna take what we've started at Hubtran and take it to the next level.
It strikes me that this is a pretty profound. It's interesting because when you sort of combine what you guys have built at Hubtran with what Triumph Bank and TriumphPay have been building over the last couple of years. I mean, Jordon, you and I met, I think it was 2016, and it was another year before you actually got TriumphPay off the ground. It was in late 2017, if I recall. It's been a heck of a run. Some of the numbers that you shared with us in the past have just been astounding, how much volume is moving through your payment network, or the payment network that is TriumphPay. Can you update us on the scale of what you guys are actually seeing today?
Yeah, so when you combine Hubtran and TriumphPay together, we will have over 500 brokers on the system. I guess it's going to be operated as a single system. That's what we're working towards. So we have over 500 brokers as customers, 17 of the top 25 brokers in the country, over 55 factors, and several in the top 10. And then the total payment volume of invoices flowing through the systems would be about $25 billion. So it's a considerable chunk of brokered freight, and that's honestly what brought us to this kind of inflection point where we had to make a decision about which path we were going, because it has reached a scale where it can make an impact for folks, and we needed to make that decision now and communicate it very clearly to the industry about how we are approaching both the brokerage industry and the factoring industry.
$25 billion of freight is flowing through your payment network, which would put you, back in my payment days, you would be one of the top, at least B2B payment networks in the entire United States. And you've done this in what, 3 years? We're on our third year anniversary.
It's third year, man. Third year.
What do you credit? Obviously, this transactions, certainly continues to accelerate that. But what do you credit the momentum that you've received over the last couple of years?
Man, I think if you just take a step back and look at this industry, when we talk about brokered freight and transportation factoring, this industry arose because of deregulation, right? It arose because of deregulation leading to the fragmentation of the U.S. truckload carrier base. And those two intermediaries, the freight brokerage industry and the factoring industry, have gained a massive market share in the for-hire truckload space because those smaller carriers need the tools and services that those companies provide. And so their growth, especially over even the last 10 years, has been just exponential in their market share gains. You and I were kind of bouncing some numbers around, but we think truckload brokered freight is over 100 billion, close to 150 billion dollars, and factored volumes in transportation are closer to 75 billion dollars. And as things are today, as much commercial interaction as those participants have, the 9,000 active freight brokers in the U.S. and the 402 factors, there's no integration, there's no coordination. And so everything's being done via email, unstructured data, phone calls, and a lot of manual labor. And that's where the opportunity exists for us to come in and say, hey, here is this toolkit, here's this network that's going to help develop rules and standards and tools and services to take that world from unstructured data and phone calls to frictionless presentment, settlement, and payment. That opportunity just was there, and I think the unique position of Triumph, having to focus on the industry and coming from the factoring side, we honestly just navigated our way into it and found an opening that was just available. The other thing that's benefited us is having an established reputation in the market, right? We were a known commodity to a lot of these folks. So when we showed up, they knew who we were. We weren't just a VC-backed startup trying to get them to trust us with hundreds of millions of dollars. And the last thing, man, we just have an amazing team on the sales engineering, operations side. We've hired some really great people that had deep industry connections. Some of them were FreightWaves people that you let me take, Mitch Hickson. And these people, men and women have done just an amazing job helping accelerate this because of their connections and relationships in the industry. So it really, honestly, we're just blessed to be where we are and excited to take this thing forward.
And you've been on full speed ahead, which has certainly helped really boost your reputation.
We were the initial sponsor for FreightWaves, right? We were the original, right?
That is a fact. You were Steve Hausman was the very first to support our mission of bringing transparency to the market. It's been interesting. These two businesses, while very different in what we do, have a lot of similarities in growth profile and such. But $25 billion, as you know, Jordon, and the viewers may or may not, I spent 9 years in payments and often drive a lot of analogies about transportation and what's happening in the freight tech space to what is taking place in fintech or what took place in fintech in the early 2000s. It strikes me that you've built this massive network, and these numbers get thrown around. I don't think people realize how big $25 billion of volume is running through your payment network that you guys have built between TriumphPay and Hubtran. How much of that money will actually settle through the network versus what is software-driven services?
Yeah, and I wanted to make sure we made that clear. So yeah, because there's kind of two components. Hubtran doesn't do payment today. And so the volume that is associated with Hubtran is really around software and this transaction volume that's flowing through Hubtran. That's actually settling. The money that's actually flowing is over 10 billion. And we are releasing quarterly earnings, so we're not going to go into too much detail on that, but it's over 10 billion.
But I imagine there's this substantial opportunity to help accelerate and automate those payment. Use the word settlement, I would use it slightly different. But regardless, there's an opportunity to automate that. Is that really the grand vision and the motivation behind this particular transaction?
Absolutely. We want to create a transaction that is integrated and structured from beginning to end. From when the invoice is generated, it doesn't turn into an email and lose all of the doc typing, load indexing, and associations. We don't want to lose all that. We want to keep that from when it's generated through when it processes through the payer to when it's actually the money actually flows to the payee. So yes, we want to go to the people that are using just Hubtran today and not using TriumphPay, and get them to see the value and the potential of connecting all the pieces together, and then go work with the payees and recipients of funds to help them get connected to the network as well. And that's the integral role that the factoring industry plays, is essentially like a merchant acquirer, right? Like Stripe or First Data. They're managing the merchants or the carriers in this example, and that's a powerful relationship that we want to help empower them and operate in the background to help them succeed, at the same time create efficiency and potential for brokers.
It's interesting when I think about really the function of brokers and factoring entities. There's similarities. One is sort of a management of money as their primary inventory, and the other is sort of the workflow of getting freight matched and executed. But at the end of the day, this business has a ton of exceptions to it. Jordon, you've given me a pretty substantial stat that almost half of the transactions that you guys that requires some level of manual exception. Matt, I imagine also that the data that you've built, this platform that you've built, can mitigate a lot of those exceptions. You and I have talked about in the past. Can you talk to us a little bit about how that will work, or what it currently does, and what your hopes and vision is in this transaction?
Yeah, sure. So we started off serving freight brokers, and then maybe a year into it, started talking with factories. Said, oh, they have a similar problem. They're getting this, high volume, chaotic inflow of paperwork, and they had, so both brokers and factories are sorting through all this paperwork and trying to make sense of it, and trying to resolve all of these exceptions via email and phone calls on kind of this one-off basis. Super problematic. And so we really started off by using some modern technology with OCR and ML to do a lot of work that previously kind of only human beings could do, which is kind of intelligently reading these documents and comparing the information in the documents to the information in their system, or in the case of factors, laying that information out for them in an easy-to-use way. So that cut down on a lot of errors, a lot of discrepancies, because anytime you're removing kind of rekeying, and you eliminate a lot of mistakes and oversights. But recently, we've been trying to take it to kind of the next level, where we are creating kind of the seamless information flow between the brokers that we serve and the factors that we serve. And that's proven tremendously valuable, because if you're a broker, you don't want to pay the wrong entity. They do that all the time. You don't want to get all these phone calls from factors saying, kind of checking on the load, checking on the invoice. So we're providing value to the brokers. And then for the factors, I mean, obviously they care about efficiency, and we're giving them efficiency, but we're helping them with what we call payment performance, getting paid in full, getting paid on time. Some of it is avoiding mistakes and just kind of flagging discrepancies. Some of it's about flagging fraud. And then at the end of the day, brokers and factors need to serve their customers, the shippers and the carriers. So giving them a tool set to do a good job for their counterparties. And as we put this network together, one really clear example is that being able to provide information to brokers and factors saying, yes, this is the right counterparty, all the information matches, and you can just get on with life, is invaluable. And we're going to kind of just, on day one, it's going to be twice as good as it is today.
Matt, it's interesting when I think about a lot of attention in freight tech, and we are both a contributor to this attention of sort of fawning over the digitization that takes place, as well as at times a critic or a skeptic about some of the claims that folks have made. But at the end of the day, it's all toward digitization. Some would argue that payment and workflow is the boring parts of the industry, but those are the pipes that really drive the efficiencies and the digitization in this space. You've built a business that's massively scaled, one of the most important contributors in this industry. What do you think the greatest contribution that you're going to make in the legacy that is Hubtran, as you sort of move this platform to Jordon, and you guys really build this to the sort of the next generation of it? What are you most proud of?
So when we just the quick backstory is that um, previous to Hubtran, I was running a 3PL. And every time we would take on a bunch of new customers, which is always a nice event, have to hire more people in the back office to kind of, again, shuffle all this paperwork and make phone calls and rekey data. And I was looking at this saying, this is insane. Why am I putting resources into this? And so I figured there's got to be good tools out there. We had a lot of, kind of the companies that were providing those tools come in, and I interviewed them and they interviewed me, and it's just like nobody's really cracked the code here. And so what we put together was trying to get away from kind of the old school kind of on-premise, really heavyweight, high cost, kind of inflexible software that only kind of the biggest companies could afford and have the IT staff to support, right? And so we built something that's super lightweight. All you need is, email and a browser, and you're off to the races. And I think that, what I'm most proud of is when we started, we kind of we're focusing on small companies. And we said, how can we make this work for them, and then gradually move up market? And now I think it's, in those early days, back office was not even a topic of conversation. Everybody was focused on freight matching, routing, things like that. Now people recognize, to your point, that kind of all of this work around the transaction is incredibly important, and you have to get it right, and you have to make it easy and reliable and cheap. And that's what we've achieved, and it's just going to get that much better combining it with the TriumphPay network.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think matching is, in many ways, is the sexier part of the business by most people's definition, because you got two, you're matching a shipper and a truck, and it feels very sexy. The dollar amounts that you're handling are quite large, whereas back office always feels a little bit less sexy. Payments for most people feel unsexy. I love payments, as you know, Jordan. I gotta ask, I'm gonna ask it again. When can I buy stock, not in the bank, but TriumphPay? When are you guys gonna SPAC this thing, take it public, create the next great freight tech unicorn?
So you guys can't see it, but our general counsel and investor relations team's over here. So if I say anything on that, they're gonna zap me. So I'm just gonna have to let that one hang out there.
All right, I'm rooting for you, Jordan. I think that there's so much value in building this massively important payments network, and you're doing it inside. I think you're doing it very smartly by building a platform, particularly with the integration of Hubtran directly into the payment product. Matt, what is your message to your customers? You now, Hubtran has a new home, a new owner. What would you like customers to hear from you as CEO of Hubtran?
So we've always had a customer first approach. And I mean, just to give you an example, we've got, today we've got like 2 dedicated salespeople. It's all about building products that make sense for our customers. And that's what we are continuing to do. Obviously we've been in conversation with TriumphPay and Jordon for several weeks prior to this announcement. And the question was, well, look, should we continue to hire engineers as we're having this conversation? And the answer came back, hell yeah. And so that kind of pace of innovation, of putting the customer first, of really digging into kind of what are their pain points, what are their problems, how do we solve these problems, as opposed to, hey, here's a kind of one-size-fits-all solution. That's just going to continue and accelerate, I think. I'll give you an example. We've been promoting kind of our new kind of lights out processing that doesn't require any human oversight at all. I mean, again, we're just with kind of the resources that TriumphPay can bring to bear, that product's just going to get that much more traction, go that much faster. And at the end of the day, our customers, they want efficiency. They want, kind of to work with trustworthy partners. They want to do a good job for their customers, and, we're going to continue to deliver.
Matt, you and I've talked about this. COVID created a lot of tailwinds for your business, just as people said, I don't have them in the office. I need to find ways to do this in the cloud. I need to automate a lot of my workflow. Are you still seeing taking the macro freight trends, which the market is super hot, as we all know, but take that away, are you still seeing an acceleration of the business?
So there was a lot of choppiness in the business. Kind of when I go back about a year in time, it was crazy. And then once companies got over kind of that initial shock, kind of that deer in the headlights, what do I do now? And I can't put my finger on exactly when that happened, but kind of that June-ish time frame, things just started taking off. But at the same time, it's hard to kind of tease out all the variables because we just started doing a better. We had been investing in product, trying to figure out how to go to market. So things have been clicking for the past year. A while ago you asked me kind of, what am I most proud of? I'll tell you, my happiest moments in this business are when we turn on a new customer, and I don't care if it's 6,000, kind of transactions or loads a day or six, and they send an unprompted email or call in and say, "This is just great. Kind of this is somebody who's using Hubtran. You've changed my life. It's like my workday is so much better now because of the Hubtran tech." And um, I think that's what's creating the biggest tailwinds for us. Is kind of customers just love it.
Well, congratulations, Matt. You've done something that we don't see a lot of. You've actually taken a business from start to exit. There's a lot of activity in this space. You have done something that I think is quite astonishing, the scale and the speed of which you built your business, but also the fact that you now have an opportunity to, as an entrepreneur, look to the future and look forward. We look forward to seeing what you're up to next. Hopefully, we'll have you on full speed ahead. We can break the show and break the story. Jordon, I got to ask, are you more likely to see the Baylor Bears win the NCAA tournament this year or have a top 25 team in football?
Oh, brother, it's got to be the best. It's got to be an NCAA championship, man. I believe in our basketball. I believe in our basketball legacy more than our football one, I would say. So, what about you?
It's been a rough ride, hasn't it?
It was a little rough. It was a rough time at the Graft household after the Baylor Lady Bears got gypped out of their victory the other night. So we had a little weeping and gnashing of teeth. So we're ready to see the men take the championship.
The men look dominant. I don't watch a lot of basketball. I'm not a huge basketball fan. Don't even hardly watch. I don't really watch the NBA but I enjoy a game. And I have to tell you that was some of the best. The Arkansas game was some of the best basketball I have seen or laid my eyes on. So it certainly take a lot of pride in the fact that it's our school. Well, gentlemen, I really appreciate you coming on, sharing us the story. Jordon, what would you like customers that are Hubtran customers to know about this transaction, about their new owner?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. I want them to know that they're now our customers, and we're here to serve them. And we're going to use everything we can in our tools that we have today and the tools that we're going to build to serve them well, whether they're a broker or a factor. Our interest is in benefiting the industry. We're creating that neutrality to serve these people well and to not just benefit our sister factor company. And that they will be hearing from us, and we will be outlining for them a roadmap of how we're going to show them value today, how we're going to show them value in 6 months after we build some stuff, and then what it looks like a year from now when we have time to weld this thing together to create a truly functioning integrated payments network. So we're going to be demonstrating value as we go along the way. We're here to serve them, and I just say give us a chance to ask them to give us a chance to build the trust that we're going to do what we say we're going to do and get to know us. So that would be it.
That's awesome. Well, thanks, gentlemen. Really appreciate it. Best of luck in the integration. Jordon, you are one of the greatest founders in the industry. Hopefully, we'll see the opportunity for TriumphPay to continue to scale and become a massively important payment network across this great industry of ours. You can buy stock in Triumph Bank today. It's TBK, is that right?
Yeah, So after the close, when this announces, you can buy it and you'll be in for the next day. So
all right, fantastic. And you get to be a part of this great enterprise that is TriumphPay.
Come on, water's warm. Jump on in.
Fantastic. Well, really appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for coming on Full Speed Ahead, and best of luck as you go through this journey.